Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Mass. Now playing over Discord, we've got Jovan, who has become a weekly regular. Really appreciate him playing every week. And Don. Of course, we appreciate everyone playing. Don showing up with Burn against this Dredge list. And this is Mana'd Dredge. We got this Faithless Looting. Powering out some dredgers into the graveyard, and the clock is now ticking. Don, at some point, has to find a way to end this game, because you're not really going to be able to contain Dredge. It's really not the type of deck that you can control. You pretty much, the way you answer Dredge is by dealing lethal, or game one, I mean, that's pretty much it. Now games 2 and 3, you can interact. You've got Graveyard Hate, things like Tormod's Crypt, Fairy Macabre. But game 1, when you're talking about this, I mean, the closest thing you can do to interact here as a burn player is kill your own creatures to get rid of the Bridge from Below, which is a line. I'm not going to lie. It may be relevant. Narcomoeba triggering, and just so many cards going to the graveyard here off of Faithless Looting. Narcomoeba entering the battlefield. And versus a deck like Burn, totally reasonable to be chump blocking, getting some zombie tokens, and just preserving as much life as possible. Right now, things are kind of inevitable for Jovan. So Don's got to find a way to just pretty much assemble a bunch of burn to go to the face. At least it doesn't run Golgari Brownscale. That's one of the brutal things in Pauper. There's this crazy Tortured Existence deck that uses Golgari Brownscale and just keeps dredging it back constantly. And you just gain, like, so much life off of it. It is pretty much impossible for Burn to beat. And we got a Chain Lightning. So 5 damage coming in. Three from the Chain Lightning and 2 from the Swift Spear. Rift Bolt is going to enable another decent attack. And one of the brutal things, too, about Dredge is once it gets going, you have access to all those Cabal therapies. Probably lead out with a Fire Blast if I'm casting Cabal Therapy. It's a pretty good chance that that'll be the last card in Burn's hand. In so many games, a lot of the other Burn spells would get played. I mean, all the other Burn spells would get played first, so just basic sequencing there. Golgari Grave Troll. Piling cards into the graveyard. Bridge from Below's. And this is looking like it's going to be a pretty brutal turn. Cabal Therapy starting. And you're going to put in the zombie tokens before naming a card. That's actually, I think that's probably not as important now as it used to be. I mean, you just straight up didn't get your zombie tokens in the past if you name a card first. And we do, in fact, have a Fire Blast. It looks like he named Lightning Bolt and did snag it. One of the other things I like about going the Fire Blast route there is since Don is tapped out, he wouldn't have had any type of response. Here he can still, if he had the Fire Blast in hand and Jovan was just going to move all in, he could have potentially Fire Blasted his guy to prevent some type of bridge trigger situation, but it's looking pretty grim. 4 points of burn in the hand. There's going to be a Rift Bolt and then a Fire Blast. I believe Yvonne's just going to be too far ahead. So it looks like Dawn actually just passing the turn, not even attacking. I mean, letting the Swift Spear die here with those 3 bridge tokens in the graveyard, probably preferable. We've got a Fire Blast. In response to a Cabal Therapy, showing just a Wooded Foothills. And now zombies are turning sideways. Wooded Foothill go from Dawn. And we are in the upkeep here, bringing back what appears to be an Icarid. And now dredging. Hitting a Narcomoeba, that final bridge from below. And Jovan actually going to need to pump the brakes a little bit here. Dredge is a wild deck. Played a lot of it in pretty much every format. I actually played Dredge. I'm trying to think if I technically played Dredge before Dredge was a thing. Yeah, wow. I mean, when it was just Ravnica, it was pretty crazy. So we had cards like Brainstorm in there. Back then we had Zombie Infestation, so you would just like dump your hand to make a bunch of 2/2s. It also had either, I think it was Lotus Petal at least, maybe Chrome Mox, but it was like actually just as fast as you can get a Zombie Infestation down and then use cards like Breakthrough and Brainstorm to just dredge like 3 times, dump your whole graveyard. And there was no Narcomoeba yet back then. It was just Icarid, the Zombie Infestation tokens, Nether Shadow, and Ashen Ghoul. Yeah, old man ELD going on here. Ashen Ghoul actually was a big, big part of that deck. Paying a black to bring that guy back. Dredge, needless to say, I mean, has greatly improved since those earliest iterations. Now, Narcomoeba might just be the best card in the deck. Narcomoeba's, it may actually just be the best card in the deck. Just getting free creatures is exactly what the deck wants to be doing. And that is precisely what Narcomoeba does. You just get a free body and you can sack it, get a bunch of zombie tokens. I mean, it is so, so good. It's an incredibly good card. Yeah, it's actually kind of surprising that like a GAC doesn't run it. I mean, I guess they've got so many 1-drops. They don't really have a shortage of creatures. Hadron Crab and Stitcher Supplier is so ridiculous in that deck. Oh, a Leyline of the Void. Oh, and is that a Leyline of Sanctity? Wow! Just pure hate. Oh, pure hate from both sides here. You get to play without a graveyard. You get to play without burning my face. Wow. That is hilarious. I've got a feeling that Dawn's going to be favored here because of this Goblin Guide. But Jovan may be able to assemble some creatures. There's a Putrid Imp. Just going to discard, so Narcomoeba being discarded. All sorts of good stuff with this Goblin Guide. Putrid Imp going to the bin. Golgari Thug. And I'm actually a little bit surprised. I would think low casting cost creatures would be really important here to get out in front of these creatures. Finally, a card going to hand off of the Goblin Guide. And let's see what the game plan's going to be. Just going to exile. Yeah, you see here, I feel like a Putrid Imp saves you a point of mana, or saves you a point of life. You can just play it and block. Ooh, spicy. Wear Tear, taking out the ley line. Is there enough time? Starting out with a breakthrough. Oh, and I would have loved to have seen that Putrid Imp in hand prior to this breakthrough. Just discard all of these dredgers. This would have been game over on the spot. Yeah, tough to say without knowing the contents of the hand completely, but that is my gut feeling, is that Putrid Imp super, super important. Oh, and Dawn having some graveyard hate there, wiping out Yovan's graveyard after the ley line. So we're going on to game number 3. Looked like Dredge was just going to be ready to go. Instead, we're facing down game number 3, and we'll see what Burn has to say about these Leyline of Sanctity. A very spicy sideboard card, which is an awful lot to deal with. Yeah, last time I played against Leyline of Sanctity I was borrowing a modern Burn deck. We had exactly 15 or however many people we had for the Modern Open. It made sense for me to play in one of the Modern Opens, but I didn't have a Modern deck. So I just asked the room if anybody wanted to throw me a deck. Somebody let me borrow Burn, and it was pretty brutal. I was playing against a mono green Tron, and he ended up getting out game 1, Wormcoil and Thragtusk, super fast, main deck Thragtusk. Game 2, I was on the play and actually rolled him. And then game 3, he opened on Leyline of Sanctity and ended up with a pretty quick Wormcoil engine. The fun part of that game was prior to the Wormcoil engine, I had a Monastery Swiftspear to start things off, and I was able to burn my own face repeatedly to pump the Monastery Swiftspear up and get in some real damage. And then for the final 6 damage, my opponent attacked me with their Wormcoil engine. And I had Deflecting Palm. And it was game over. And I had to read the card 4 times to make sure that there was not going to be any lifelink happening, that it just doesn't work out. All I needed to do was sit back and never attack with the Wormcoil engine, and there was zero way I could win the game. And instead, Deflecting Palm took out the final 6 points of life. It was pretty brutal. Both ley lines here to start out. Let's see if Yovan can find an answer for it. Oh, and right off the bat, he's got it. Wear Tear taken down. The Wear, I suppose. Leave Tear out of this. Just another land. And Dawn looks like he's got a burn-heavy hand. No creatures to support. Maybe he's got a bunch of graveyard hate. We'll find out. A little bit of draw go here. And now discarding a Golgari Grave Troll. Yovan on the slow Dredge plan, which is often the correct thing to do when your opponent may have graveyard hate. Instead of moving all in, dumping your hand, just force them to use their graveyard hate. And these Narcomoebas are a perfect time. If there's a surgical or anything, I mean, you got to feel like those Narcomoebas would have been the prime candidates for it. It's a good response to Narcomoeba, using a surgical to exile them all from the graveyard. There's about as much value as you can get from that card, because you can get rid of the bridges with burn especially. And we've got a 3-mana. I'm not sure what this card is. Try and decipher based off of what happens. Oh, I think that's just Riftbolt. Yeah, I guess you just cast Riftbolt. Alright, so casting Riftbolt, but I didn't follow that. Did Jovan manage to get some bridges in the graveyard in response to the Riftbolt? I was so caught up trying to understand what that card was, but it is... Yeah, it's pretty clear now, I think. Wow. Dawn just drawing all the lands and ultimately just throwing it in there. That leyline was his main hope, but the opposing leyline, a major issue and not an easy one for Burn to deal with. Not a lot of good options in mono red to deal with Leyline of Sanctity. It's pretty rare to run up against it, but it is ice skating uphill when it does show up. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.